Have you ever woken up and looked outside the window to be greeted with a layer of snow covering the world? It's such a unique feeling, that beautiful freezing cold world outside, while you're all warm in your home. That's sort of what a winter level feels like to me at times. A winter level, or area, or world, is a section of the game that is completely themed around those winter staples. We've got snow, we've got ice, we've got zombies, we've got cozy little cabins. But importantly, we've got an area of the game that is quite different from the rest of the game, both thematically and often in its gameplay. A game that takes place entirely or primarily in a snowy environment wouldn't really count here, even if they do have a lot of the same features, because it's a wintry game on the whole, and a lot of the winter level charm we're going to get into is mainly really possible because of it only being a small section of the game that feels entirely different from everything else. A winter section of the game can be really good for shaking things up. Honestly, this might be why they're so common. There is so much room for different mechanics to be explored here, as well as it being a great way to mess around with the weather and atmosphere of the game. It's generally just a great opportunity to do something a bit different. While games that are constantly covered in ice and snow can do a lot to keep things engaging and varied, the ability to just fucking flood an area with these themes can do wonders for a game's variety. You can suddenly make an area feel all cozy and safe, or maybe volatile and dangerous, or often a mix of them both. And if you've just finished a level that has a completely different tone, stepping into this winter wonderland can be mesmerising and gorgeous. Until you see a 10-foot penguin, that is. When you think of winter levels, probably the first things that come into your head are snow and ice. Winter is cold, these levels are cold, and you can bet on the fact that there will be snow everywhere and either ice flooring or hanging icicles. And a lot of games will take full advantage of this and change a lot of the game's actual mechanics to fit around it. Lower traction is basically a staple for this theme, where you slide around on the ice a bit and struggle to get going. But sometimes you'll see things like having to trudge through snow or get the ability to break the terrain. This sort of thing can be both kind of annoying at times, but also a pretty welcome challenge since you're basically tweaking all of the muscle memory that you've just built up when moving around. Oftentimes, winter levels will be a really good invitation for some new and unique enemies. Stardew Valley's ice levels in the mines will introduce a bunch of different enemies, from ghosts to skeletons to these little dust sprite guys. Aww. This keeps the area fresh, but also means that the enemies can be designed around the specific stage. So in a game like Super Mario Wonder, you won't be thrown the same enemies that you'd get in non-ice levels. Instead, there will be enemies like Out My Way, incredible name by the way, that'll play around the low traction and kick ice blocks at you. Sometimes a game will also use the snow and ice themselves as an obstacle. In certain areas of Pokemon games, you'll be high up on a snowy mountain, and when you get into battles, there will actually be a unique effect that damages most Pokemon each turn, which adds a new layer of strategy to both the battle, but also in deciding which Pokemon you're going to bring with you. Of course, we also see more direct threats like falling icicles quite often, and sometimes you'll come across a fucking Yeti, who is hellbent on ruining your day. Winter levels generally have a very different atmosphere and tone to most of the other levels in their games, but what's weird is that this tone can vary quite a lot. Some games will opt for a much more harsh, frostbitten, windy kind of vibe, where there is just this intense sense of danger throughout the entire level, and everything is turned up to 11. But you can also get some areas that feel a lot more calm, relaxed, delicate even. Maybe there isn't really any threat at all in these areas, and you're left to explore the world or do a few little tasks here and there. A lot of this is down to the presentation. Things like music, colours, and the setting can really set winter levels apart from the other levels in the game. You'll generally see a lot of blues and whites, with the potential of a brown cabin somewhere, and you'll probably hear something in a higher pitch, and practically no bass in its soundtrack. This honestly gives winter levels such a delicate feeling in my eyes, which goes well with all the ice and snow. A short hike is pretty fantastic for showing the contrast between normal grassy areas and the snowy areas of a game in its presentation. As you enter the snowy section of the mountain, the music will become much more intense, as this is a more dangerous area within its world. But at the same time, it'll still hold that sort of delicate feeling with the piano keys. The actual world around you will suddenly have this cold, steely blue look to it as the snow begins to fall. On top of this, you'll also have the added challenge of your feathers not naturally restoring themselves, which is a really unique way of adding challenge to this part of the game. Now, even though winter is cold, there is also this idea of warmth and coziness that comes with it. When you're all snug inside with a warm drink and a blanket. This is something that can also be conveyed in the winter levels too. In a fair few winter areas, you'll come across something like a cabin, or a village, or just some kind of safe haven away from the danger. It Takes Two's winter area takes place within a snow globe of a village they visited. This one is definitely one of those winter levels that is calm and relaxing. Well, as relaxing as it can be with these things walking around. What's great about it though, is that the more of the stage you get through, and the more tasks you complete, the warmer the colours get and the cozier it feels, as everything becomes less frozen over, and the houses can emit their warm light. I absolutely love this sort of level, not just because of how fleshed out it all feels, but because of how pretty it all is. And when you've just finished an intense action section, it's really nice to come here and just take it slow for a while. This feeling of warmth and coziness generally comes from things like the music and colours once again. Avoiding those harsher sounds and colder colours for some softer music and a lot of oranges, yellows and browns. Things like cabins, villages and warm clothes can also be really beneficial for creating that cozy wrapped up feeling. One of the big ways that these areas can feel cozy and relaxing though is by keeping the stakes low and minimising the dangerous elements. You'll find that it's actually pretty damn hard to relax when there are a pack of wolves trying to kill you, or if you have to constantly be worrying about your next step being your last. So removing a lot of these elements can be crucial for keeping that warm and cozy feeling. This isn't to say that these areas can't have any challenge to them whatsoever, it's just another case of the game needing to take the opportunity to do something different with its mechanics and gameplay and look for challenge elsewhere. Every now and then, these areas will also have a bit of a festive feeling to them, and this is sort of the cherry on top of the cake for maintaining that calm and cozy vibe. I mean, for most people, coziness is practically synonymous with the holiday season, so there is this extra level of natural safety and friendliness here. So here we have two very different atmospheres and styles of gameplay that share a wintry theme. And they clash. They clash hard. I mean, one is all about that harsh, cold, maybe even uncomfortable feeling you get when playing an icy level. Whereas the other is all about that safe, warm, cozy feeling you get from getting out of that cold environment. But in my eyes, that is exactly where this huge clash can actually help them complement each other. When you're playing through a bastard of a snowstorm level, trying desperately to get to the end, to then be met with this completely opposite feeling of safety and sanctuary once you get to some sort of village area only makes it feel all the more cozy and warm. Alternatively, going from that safe haven, where you'd gotten used to being able to explore a cozy little village area, to then having to deep dive into a cold lake and avoid a terrifying giant fish, just makes that section of the game suddenly feel a lot more intense. Taking a look at Super Mario Galaxy, there is a world called Freezeflame Galaxy, which is all about that sort of juxtaposition between the hot lava sections and the freezing cold ice sections. Each of these play out very differently and have their own challenges to them. The ice sections will let you skate around on ice, but dear god, it's like I can physically feel how cold that water is. The lava sections of the galaxy will give you a lot more freedom in where you can move, but the challenge comes in having to light up the torches before your fire flower runs out, and avoiding all of the deadly enemies. Playing through these areas highlights how the other one is just so different. You know, you'd expect the fire level to be much more action based, and the ice level to be a bit more puzzle based, just going off stereotypes. But here it's kind of the opposite, with Mario figuring out how to get rid of the obstacles in the fire areas, while battling the boss in the ice area. And the fact that you're likely playing them one after the other only highlights this difference. The classic winter level trope in games is overall a really versatile and varied one, with a lot of standardised elements that can really help to set the tone for whatever it's going for. If the game wants to suddenly switch to this more intense or deadly situation, then wintry themes can be a really great vessel for that. But alternatively, it can do the opposite, and actually provide this great setting for a safe, cozy and warm environment, maybe to give you a break after beating some brutal stage. In some cases, it can do a little bit of both. But importantly, winter levels or worlds can be such an amazing way to just completely shake up the gameplay and environment of a game. There is just so much potential to do so many cool things. Maybe that's in what enemies you have to fight in the area, or what environmental hazards you need to overcome. The likelihood is, they're going to, at the very least, be something a little different and maybe more interesting than what you've just been experiencing in the game up until then. And whether a winter level is harsh and cold, or cozy and warm, its existence is always welcome to me.